Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital. And we're going to go back to one of the numerous gypsy breweries that you'll find up there. And it's been a while since I've reviewed anything from these guys, but the previous beers that I've had from them have always been pretty damn good actually. For this one then, we are going to return to In Brewing, and we're having a taste of the Gothenburg Phenomenon Pale Ale today. This one comes in at 5.7% ABV, and from what I understand this is a sort of New England hazy type pale ale, this one. But the idea behind this beer I think is pretty good. It's a collaboration with a lot of the different breweries around Gothenburg. So the breweries involved here, other than All In, are Popels Brewery, Ocean Bryggeriet, Stigbergets Brewery, Dugas Brewery, Vega Brewery, Spike Brewing, OO Brewing, Mohawk Brewing Company, Mikrofon Bryggeriet, who are of course now known as Duck Pond Brewing Company, Odd Island Brewery, Attic Meadery, Beerbibliotek, Morgendagens and Electric Nurse. And I've reviewed all of those for you on the channel except Attic Meadery, so I need to look into them actually, and my Morgendagens review that I've done hasn't quite published yet, so keep an eye out for that one. That will appear probably a few days after this one's published. But yeah, curious to see how this beer turns out. This one was released on the 22nd of November 2019 through the Tillfälligt Sortiment, or the small parties as it was previously known in Systembolaget, our government-owned alcohol stores here in Sweden, for those of you watching abroad. But yeah, really curious to see how this one turns out. It's cool to return to this brewery after a little while, and as always I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we open up the beer. I will say though, I'm not going to talk about the other ones because there are so many of them involved here, and the video would just go crazy in terms of length. We'll just focus on All In Brewing for the history section of the video. So yeah, as is usual, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. All the different links and stuff are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from All In Brewing before. I will probably add some more in the fairly near future. You'll find all the usual social media down there too. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. At the time that this video publishes as well, there probably will still be a few of my out and about videos publishing from Gothenburg as well, so do make sure you check those out. So yeah, let's get on with the history section of the video then. On to my brewery notes. So as I mentioned to you earlier, All In Brewing are a gypsy brewery based up in Gothenburg on the Swedish west coast, and this company started back in 2012 under Pelle Frost, and they do plan in the future to have their own brewery at some point, but right now they're brewing at a variety of other breweries in the Gothenburg area. So in their early years they travelled Europe making a lot of different collaboration beers with other breweries, but recently, I think it was within 2 or 3 years or something, most of the beers have been brewed back here in Sweden. They started brewing with Brewski in Helsingborg, and one of their brewers that they had, Lucas Monroyd, he worked full time at Brewski for a period of time brewing both the All In beers and the Brewski beers, and later for a while as well they brewed their beers at West Coast Brewery, who I believe are now known as West Coast Beersmiths if I remember correctly. But the three brewers that they had for quite a while were Lucas, Victor and Andreas, and they'd always been into the big fruity American style IPAs, but they also liked the imperial stouts as well. So Victor and Andreas are the kind of original guys at the brewery, while Lucas was headhunted from another brewery and he was the head brewer for a period of time, but they did work as a team to create the recipes for the different beers. In 2015 they were voted as one of the top 100 brewers by Rate Beer, and in 2019, this year, they were aiming to scale up their brewing to around 100,000 litres of beer, but that was dependent on whether they got a contract with Systembolaget. I'm not sure if they did manage that, but the aim without the contract was around 60,000 litres, and Pelle is making big efforts to get the beers exported to Europe. And their main brewer, of course, Lucas Monroyd, he left to go to Stigbergets, I believe, late 2017, early 2018, so it is Victor and Andreas that are doing the brewing now, from what I understand. Every year they also have their own beer festival in Gothenburg, which is called the All In Beer Fest. When I was in Gothenburg, I didn't realise it was on, otherwise I would have gone, so I definitely need to get to that at some point. It's regarded again as a very good beer festival, some crazy beers making their way over here from America, and they also are co-owners of the Brewers Beer Bars. in Gothenburg as well. I do recommend that you visit the Tredje Långgatan one, because that is the original one, and they co-own that with some of the guys from Dugges Brewery as well, Mikael Engström Dugge, who's a fantastic brewer incidentally. But yeah, I would recommend you check out that. That's kind of the unofficial all-in Dugges Brewery, and I guess Electric Nurse as well, because the woman at Electric Nurse, Ida, she is the daughter of Mikael Dugge as well. So you'll find some really nice beers from Electric Nurse, Dugges Brewery, and All In Brewing at the Brewer's Beer Bar. So highly recommend that you check that out, and you will see my little out and about video from there publishing at some point fairly soon as well. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about All In Brewing for the moment as well. If you want to learn more about them, of course, you can check out the brewery website. I would recommend though that you follow them on Facebook and Instagram. That's probably better to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and if you're interested in the different beers that they've done, the Rate Beer and Untappd pages are a very good resource to check out as well. So yeah, that's all you need to know. As I said, we're not going to go into the other breweries, because that would just take absolutely ages. But again, the breweries involved there are Popels, Ocean, Stigbjergets, Dugges, Vega, Spike, OO Brewing, Mohawk, Mikrofon Bryggeriet, now Duck Pond, Odd Island, Attic Meadery, Beerbibliotek, Morgendogens, and Electric Nurse. And you know, for me, Beerbibliotek are very interesting. They've got, you know, the amount of beers that they produce is kind of crazy. OO Brewing and Stigbjergets are very good for the IPAs, and Dugges Brewery, of course, pretty much anything they try is very good. I would say that Dugges Brewery are probably the best all-round brewery in Sweden at the moment, actually. But there's a lot of very good brewers over here, in my opinion, now. So Swedish craft beer, you definitely need to check out if you get the chance. But there you can see the artwork on this one. You can see at the bottom there is the cranes. I mean, Gothenburg is a port city. I think it might actually be the biggest port in Northern Europe, come to think of it. But yeah, a lovely presented beer, this one. I do like the sort of American neon kind of thing in there, which is cool. But there you can see on the back, there's the list of all the breweries that I was talking about. All In Brewing, their symbol incidentally, where is it? Yeah, you can see this little part of the beer here, the All In Brewing Company symbol. But yeah, quite a few gypsy breweries around the Gothenburg area, so kind of cool with that. I did notice the other brewery, two breweries that come to mind that weren't involved in this one would be Sad Robot and Två Feta Grisar, but I know there's a hell of a lot of other breweries around the Gothenburg area as well. And when you open this beer up, it does come across very nicely. There's something very distinctive about the hops in this. Ooh, it's got a lovely juicy fruity aroma as you open up. I've got a feeling this one might be a little bit of, don't know, could that be a little bit of Simcoe or something like that in here? It does almost, it smells like a little bit like Citra or Simcoe or something like that. It smells like a bit of a kind of classic, nostalgic IPA, this one. So yeah, as you can see, and as you would expect from one of these kind of New England hazy IPAs, it's poured a lovely bright yellow colour. This one definitely yellow rather than anything else. I wouldn't say this is the murkiest of the hazy IPAs and pale ales and stuff that you're going to come across, but then again, generally, if it is a pale ale rather than an IPA, it's not going to be quite as hazy, to be honest with you, because the more malt content you've got, of course, the more oats, and it tends to be the oats and things that make these beers quite murky from what I understand. But it does have a good level of haze to it. You can see if I put my fingers behind the glass there's a solid quarter of a finger of a bumpy, perfect white head on this one. That's fading away to be a very thin foamy layer. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of that head, but overall it looks pretty damn nice, and nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider what style it is. So yeah, a lovely looking hazy New England pale ale actually. I do like how this all comes together. So yeah, lovely looking beer. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and see how we get on. Yeah, that's really nice. I mean, straight away with this, the malty side of things, you can definitely smell it's got a bit of that white bready, wheaty kind of thing. It's definitely got a bit of oaty creaminess to it as well, and some light kind of biscuity notes. I'm not sure whether it's what the malt base in this one is. So it says Inhola kornmalt, havre och vetemalt. So yeah, that means basically havre is oats and vete is wheat, obviously. So yeah, it does have the wheat and the oaty kind of things in it. Other breweries like to use things like dextrose and dextrin sugars and stuff, but yeah, mostly in Sweden they actually do stick to wheat and oats actually. So yeah, you can smell that, and I would say that, to be honest, the more you smell of this beer, You can smell that the wheat has a little bit of pungency, as I've said in other ones, mainly the Treehouse and Trillium beers that I've reviewed recently. It's interesting how they take different approaches. For example, the Treehouse beers are very, very, very smooth, but the Trillium beers have a little bit more kind of bite to them from the wheat and things. This one comes across in the aroma as if the wheat is going to have a little bit of that bite to it. So yeah, there is a little bit of a kind of pungency, a stringency from the wheat, I have to say. So yeah, I like how that goes together. I think this will be a nice, quite, you know, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Quaffable, maybe, a really nice drinkable New England Pale Ale, actually. This smells really nice. It's a bit nostalgic, this beer, to be honest. It does smell like a little bit of a more old school New England IPA, if you can even say that, because this style's what, from around 2015, so yeah, it's kind of, it really comes across, there's something about the hoppiness in this beer that comes across pretty, as a sort of little bit nostalgic to me, but the malt base is pretty much what you'd expect, smooth and wheaty with a little bit of pungency to it, some nice oaty creaminess, and also just a little bit of a kind of biscuity note to the beer as well. In terms of the hoppiness then, there's a good little bit of a floral character to this one. It is a little bit grassy, and to be honest, I would say that the hops lean a little bit more towards the kind of grassy side of things, but the floral presence is, you know, it does have a little bit, but I'd say more grassy in terms of the green side of the hops. And on the fruity side of things, yeah, this one is pretty straight up. I mean, it's got a little bit of mango, a little bit of pineapple, something like that, maybe some apricot-y, sort of papaya type notes in this one. So I do wonder if it's like a kind of classic Citra and Simcoe, actually. It's got a really nice, just sort of, you know, old school one. This reminds me a little bit of, you know, for example, like the Amazing Haze or the, you know, the Narangi and GBG beer, the Steep beers and OO brewing beers. There's a little bit of a kind of old school vibe to this one when it comes to the New England IPAs. There's a lot more hops and malts and things out these days. You know, you've got Sabro, Idaho 7, what else? You've got Girillo and all of these kind of things as well. There's so many new hops these days. Enigma from Australia, Galaxy as well, and all the New Zealand ones. But I think there's something about this beer that really tells me it might be something kind of quite old school, like a Citra Simcoe combination. So yeah, really nice. A little bit of a kind of passion fruity note, a little bit of a kind of, mainly a kind of mango quality, some pineapple and papaya and apricot-y type notes as well. So yeah, it comes across pretty nicely, this one, actually. So take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma before you get stuck into it, but we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. So this one is the Gothenburg Phenomenon, New England style pale ale, coming in at 5.7% ABV from In Brewing in Gothenburg in Sweden, one of the gypsy breweries, brewed in collaboration with a hell of a lot of other breweries around at the Gothenburg area. If you do get the chance to come to Sweden and you like your craft beer, Gothenburg is a little bit of a must, I have to say. Let's get stuck into this beer. Sláinte, skål. Yeah, that's pretty nice. I mean, this beer, I guess, I'm not sure if this one might have been, you know, the festival beer for All In Beer Fest. I've got a feeling it probably was, to be honest with you. And it's one of the things I've noticed, actually, when you get some of these, when you get these kind of beers, you know, you'd expect if you've got a massive collaboration, they're going to try something a little bit mental and something like that, you know. You get the feeling that they are going to do something like that. But this to me comes across as like quite a sessionable kind of festival type beer. So I'm wondering if this was the one that was done for the All In Festival, actually. That's an interesting point to make about this beer, because it comes across, yeah, as one of these ones that is supposed to be kind of quite nice and sessionable. So yeah, in terms of like from a drinkability perspective and stuff like this is a pretty damn solid pale ale, to be honest with you. In terms of like a sort of beer geeky kind of thing, it's one of these ones that, you know, it doesn't really do anything new, if you like. It doesn't do anything absolutely mental. This is a beer that's supposed to be considered a kind of session or a drinkable one. So yeah, it is quite like a festival beer, this, actually. So yeah, I never thought about that before I filmed this review, that this one could well have been the All In Beer Festival 2019 festival beer. So yeah. But that is, in terms of a pale ale, it's quite nice. And to be fair, I don't actually review all that many pale ales for you on the channel, and it's not usually it's not really a conscious thing, to be honest. It does just tend to be that most of the beers being released in Sweden through the local small sect assortments, they always tend to be IPAs or double IPAs rather than pale ales. So yeah, you don't get all that many kind of pale ale beers. I think actually pale ales are more are kind of more common over in England and stuff like this, like Cloudwater and Verdant and all these kind of breweries. They do a lot of pale ales, but it's, come to think of it, I don't think there's all that many of the breweries here do them. But in fairness, the other thing you have to consider in Sweden is that a lot of these beers, if they're going to brew a pale ale in Sweden generally, probably what they would do is make it a very low alcohol pale ale so that it could be sold in the supermarkets. That's the other thing that you probably have to consider here. So most of the beers you are going to find in Systembolaget are the sort of 6-7% IPAs. So yeah, this is one, to find a pale ale of this percentage, like 5.5-7% roughly, is a bit more difficult in Sweden, to be honest. Actually, that's something you do need to consider here. And the thing in England was too, when it came to the pale ales, you know, for like an extra pound, £1.50, so what's that, about 20 crowns or something, you know, for an extra 20 crowns you could go from having a pale ale to having like a bigger IPA or a double IPA even. So for in England, it wasn't, I didn't think it was that worthwhile buying the pale ales rather than the IPAs and stuff like that. And it's, when you're a big beer nerd, obviously you want to be kind of blasted with flavour and things like that. That's what the craft beer thing's all about. But this beer is really quite nice. Sorry, we've blabbed on a little bit. Let's talk about the actual beer rather than the idea of pale ales. But yeah, straight away with this beer, in the middle of your palate you can feel that nice white bready wheaty quality. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, if you move further into the centre of the palate, you can feel a little bit of the oaty creaminess, but it's not very thick. And I mean, that's the thing with the pale ale, is you don't have as big a malty presence. The pale ales, the IPAs, the double IPAs, the barley wine as well, they're all in the same family, and they're related by the hop to malt ratio, so they are brewed in the same way. But obviously the higher up your pale ale IPA, double IPA, when you travel in that direction you're getting more malt and things, so you're not going to get quite as thick a malty character from a pale ale because it's at the bottom of the heap. But yeah, you do get a little bit of oaty presence to this one. There's a teeny bit of a biscuity sweetness in the middle of your palate, but mainly to me this beer feels, it's got that white bready wheaty sort of thing. It almost comes across as a little bit pale malt like in the malt base as well, and it does dry out a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste too. So just a very light, kind of simple malt base, this one. Yeah, so for me, with this beer, it's, in terms of the hoppy side of things then, in the back corners of the palate there is a little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, you can feel that smoothing out a little bit. You'll get a touch of a floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate, then round the very front curve of the tongue it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, and then behind the front curve of the palate you've got that little oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. As I was saying earlier, I do reckon this might be a sort of Citra Simcoe combination or something similar. So if you go to the back of that oily bubble, there is a little touch of like passion fruit or something, and as you move further forward it becomes a little bit more sort of mango-like and things. There is a wee bit of a kind of pineapple-y note to the beer as well. Yeah, there is a little bit of a pineapple-y, apricot-y kind of thing, but for me it's a very straight up little bit of passion fruit and mainly a sort of mango-y note to this one. There is perhaps a little teeny bit of a limey note the further you go into the aftertaste as well, and you can get a sort of lemon-limey complexity from Citra. I wouldn't be surprised either if this is just a single hop Citra pale ale, to be honest with you. But as it stands, like I say, the main thing to take away from this one is that it is quite a nice, light, drinkable session beer. Although one of the other things I would think about with the pale ale style, to be honest, I think I prefer the West Coast pale ales to the New England pale ales, and I think the main reason for that is if you're going to have a lighter beer like this, you want it to be clean. And maybe it's just me because I got into, you know, when I lived in Germany it was all lager beers and stuff like this, it was the Dunkels and stuff like that. So for me, when it comes to lower alcohol beers, I do like them a little bit cleaner, and I think when it comes to the New England IPAs, they're a bit better when they're around the sort of 6-7% mark. I think when you're into the 5s with the New England, it's a little bit low to kind of carry the flavour and stuff like this. So that's another point I would make about the New Englands. For me, the New England IPAs, I think, I think that the sweet spot for them tends to be between 6.5 and sort of maybe 8.5% at the most. I think there's a sort of fine line for getting these right, because if it's too low, then it feels quite light, if you like, and it's not quite, this style isn't clean enough for me in terms of flavour to hold that. But then if you go above the 8.5%, that's when you start to struggle to cover the alcohol without caramel and things like that. You get away with that. I think, personally, I think the West Coast IPAs and pale ales and stuff, they're a little bit more flexible than the New England ones are, in honesty. But in terms of this being a sessionable sort of festival beer, if you like, it really does, it ticks all the boxes here, and it sort of fits in with the trend, if you like, with the whole Gothenburg, the whole kind of Gothenburg West Coast IPA sort of thing that they have there, the Swedish West Coast IPA as it's called. So yeah, it's like a sort of baby version, if you like, of a Swedish kind of West Coast IPA. You know, if you like the West Coast IPA that Stigbergets Brewery do, this one isn't a million miles away from that, although the Stigbergets one is a little bit higher, higher in alcohol. So yeah, a nice sessionable beer, this one, and it's made me think a little bit more about the pale ale style. So I'll say to you guys watching, let me know some other sort of hazy pale ales and stuff that I should try, because it would be cool to explore this particular kind of sub-style a little bit more and form a better opinion of it, because like I say, when it comes to pale ales, I probably do prefer the West Coast ones, but maybe I need to educate myself a little bit more about it. But an interesting thing to think about there. I do wonder if this is the All In Brewing or the All In Festival beer, because it does come across that way. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say that this beer is fairly light-bodied. Yeah, definitely a light-bodied beer. Carbonation is really very smooth. The mouthfeel overall, yeah, it's got a good bit of crispness to it, but mainly it's quite smooth. You've got a nice little bit of hoppy bitterness in there. I think you're talking maybe about 25 or 30 IBUs. The malt base is, you know, fairly smooth. There's a little teeny bit of sweetness to it. You get a little bit more sweetness to it in the aftertaste, but you can feel it drying out a little bit, and you've also got some nice juicy fruitiness to this one as well. So yeah, give it a go for yourself and just see what you think. But this has been an interesting one to review for a few of the reasons I've mentioned earlier. I've blabbed a little bit more in this review, so I do apologise for it, but I love it when you get beers like this that do make you think about styles and stuff like that. So yeah, let's just leave it at that for this one. This one is the Gothenburg Phenomenon, a New England style pale ale at 5.7%. I suspect this was the festival beer for All In Festival 2019, and it's a collaboration with a lot of the other breweries around Gothenburg. So if you come to visit Sweden, go to Gothenburg, try out some of the beer venues, and you certainly won't be disappointed with what you find up there. So yeah, let's just leave it at that. Hopefully we can return to All In Brewing at some point in the fairly near future as well. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from All In Brewing as well. No doubt we'll return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future. Make sure you check out my social media. Make sure you check out some of the other breweries involved here too. But I will catch you guys very soon, and I hope you've enjoyed my take on this beer. Until the next time, Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slanja, Skull, make sure you check out some of the All In Brewing beers. Cheers.